All right. Welcome. My name is Jerry Cabazzuto from godislovetruthlife.com or godislovetruthfreedom.com because a life without freedom is not a life worth living. And today I have back our amazing guest, Dr. Plattner. Yay.
Hey, Jerry. Thanks for having me on again. I appreciate the
Yeah.
hospitality. Yes, so I appreciate it. So thank you.
Yeah, totally. And we're recording on the day that you released part 3 of your Are You a Criminal series, which I fucking love. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
How,
thank you.
like, what was your process for that? And yeah,
Oh,
would love to
man,
promote that.
yeah. Well, thank you for promoting it. Thank you for being here and talking about it. Um, yeah, I think it sort of came to me the understanding of the beginning of the whole thing, this idea of criminality. And as one gets to learn more about how words are used and how definitions are created, right?
Mhm.
You one will begin to see how they cast spells, this idea of spelling
Yeah.
and the words we use have a vibration that come out of our vocal cords and get spoken into the universe.
Mm.
And we also can know that certain tones have certain sacred geometric shapes in
Mm.
cymatics. If you look through look into cymatics, you will be able to see how tones have sacred geometrical shapes that they form these like ice crystals, almost like think of like an ice crystal and
Mm.
things like that. And
Right.
so basically, they're shapes that are built into nature. And so when we speak, it literally shapes this energy, this vibratorial space. And so the powers that should not be, people that have had this knowledge passed on through generation to generation, they keep that knowledge to themselves. And
Mm.
then if they use it for dark purposes, dark meaning that it is um, a way for them to stay in power while all the rest of the ignorant are their subjects.
Mm.
They use this hidden knowledge to keep people in a slave system. So
Yes.
if you can understand, so word language, it I talked about in my first part, linguistic relativity, how part one, how that language definitions can the definition of a word eventually soaks into a society, and then the society then shape it. The word definition shapes the societal behavior.
Mm.
um, a spare wolf hypothesis is what I talked about, is this
Right.
idea. And this was what was alluded to in fictional, as I talked about in part one, fictional works like
Mm.
1984 and other ones that the language it's shaped. So
Right.
thinking of all of this, knowing that criminal means if there's an injured party, if you've actually hurt someone, in man's law, that's really there's two parts to a criminal understand in man's law. There's one where you go against the statute and codes when you go against the state, they
Mm.
label you as a criminal, but the state is not a person. It's not a living man or woman.
Right.
It's fantasy.
Yeah.
But the actual definition of a crime is in line with natural law, is
Right.
understanding the true makeup of how this realm works, and this natural law, as hopefully people will take the time to learn. And there's good information out there to learn and study. But so again, natural law is in sort of what I'm speaking here in this sort of stream of thought, it's not man-made. So it's
Right.
not made by men and women. It is inherent into this realm. So and that means you got to understand natural law through the reverse, through the apophatic,
Mm-hmm.
because there's almost an unlimited amount of things we can do. But there are a few things that if we do them, it creates suffering. There's only a few things to know. So the negative, knowing it in the negative way, that's how you can fully understand what natural law is.
Right.
So there's a few things that you would do that would cause harm. So that is actually being a crime because you're stealing someone's property. Those few things are always stealing property. So you are then actually a criminal when you steal property. So
Right.
In the current society that we live in now, that word has been shifted. It's been co-opted by the powers that should not be, and they label people. Then you fall in. Oh, I was a criminal because I didn't have my car registered, or I didn't, pay the taxes, or whatever it might be.
Right.
Whatever these labels. So, but that's actually not what a crime is.
Right.
So when an individual comes from an organization, an employee of that organization, all governments just have employees because that's I work in that structure, then
Right.
they'll try to get you into their jurisdiction so they can label you as a criminal. But in reality, if you say no, then they keep persisting, then they become the criminal, because then it's assault, and it's all that stuff that happens, and it's deception and things like that, because it steals the property. So that was a very long thing, but that's how it started in my mind, the series. And so then going through, Passio's work did really well in describing wrong livelihoods. And he went into a lot of depth in understanding that, how to think about those processes. And then that sparked my interest to even be more clear and be very practical and talk about specifically, just go through the list. I felt like I needed to do that too. So that's what that came up in doing that. And if we could think about it very practically, literally, if we stop doing those wrong livelihoods, it would be so much nicer on this planet. And and then it's such a bummer to say this to people. I mean, most people, I mean, you got to, you're saying like, horrible things. It sounds as if I'm saying horrible things because people in their families, oh, my father's a physician, or my wife's a physician, or, my wife's a cop, an order follower, so or my daughter or my son. And it's just, and so it's
Spouse.
really, spouse. It's really saying these awful, it's breaking down a calcified system of the cage. I'm basically shining a flashlight on the cell walls and say, look at what you're in. You have to understand this. So it's not a popular opinion, but yeah, that's sort of my energy as you said that question.
I love the way you went through, especially in the part 3 that you released today. We're recording on the day of that release. Just going through the specific industries and why was just really helpful. I don't think anyone's done that before. Just being specific. Yeah,
and
why.
I think, yes, that's so helpful, because when we hear things as humans, we need to have sort of a context to put it in, and then it's really helpful to have a practical nudge that helps it sit better. And that's how my mind works. That's how I learn. And so folks that maybe need that really clear, practical point, that's what I was trying to get across, so that would be helpful. So it brings it down into the idea of philosophy and truth, and then narrows it down in a funnel to what you can do today to stop the evil.
Right.
And it's one when you wake up, is good. 2, then you complain, that's good. But if you stop there and you're just complaining, what's that about? Then you
Right.
have to get more knowledge. And then if you're still complaining with more, then what's that? That doesn't help. Then you
Sure.
have to actually get into the full movement of the action. And what helps action, I think, sometimes is the practicalities of it. So in my work, that is sort of in the back of my mind. I try to, as best as I can, to give practicals, to get the whole framework of the overview. So the philosophical parts organized the best I can, and then distill it into practicalities. So that's sort of how I think when I present, but I'm glad it came across that way because that's what I was really hoping for.
Yeah. Yeah, just sort of because I think people, yeah, once like you said in your uh, Are You a Criminal series, as well as on our previous podcast episode, this shit is pretty like simple to understand, yet for some reason people aren't able to apply it to themselves. For
Yes.
things like right livelihood, for things like I wanted to segue into our next subject, veganism. I think that's like another sort of area where folks, have trouble saying no, doing no, excuse me.
Yes. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's right.
People can
That's right,
say no, but
Jerry.
not necessarily. Yeah. So,
Yeah. That's a huge step. That's a good point, Jerry. And I think it's I'm glad you're bringing it up because it's such a thick thing to talk about. It's so difficult and dense. And like I said, I go at it from a moral position, because one can get really lost in the weeds with the physiological, the health process of it. But it's very, very hard. So the moral system is a bit more clear and a bit more straightforward. There are some people, they've tried to wiggle themselves out of the moral system a little bit, but it really is lackluster. It really doesn't, it doesn't help. So you can be very
yeah.
clear because we can know that these animals suffer greatly at our hands. I mean,
Yeah.
I try to reduce as much as possible by not eating animal parts or animal secretions. So,
Right.
so, so I reduce that greatly doing that. But the acute at our hands, the factory farms and stuff like that move in, and even other places that take the lives of animals, it's not killing, it's murdering. Killing is if, using force to stop someone from murdering you, taking your life. That's killing.
Yeah.
That's moral. But murder is when it's innocent and a being comes and takes the life. When that
Yeah.
being did not want their life to be taken,
Yeah.
that's moral. I mean, that's murder, and that is immoral. That's murder.
Yeah.
Some people get around it by saying, well, that animal offered its life. No.
Yeah. No.
Did,
It was taken.
yes. Did that animal? Yeah. If you watch the slaughtering of animals, you will see how much they fight to stay alive.
Yeah.
So it really is because you don't care enough. Audience members that are choosing to eat animal parts and secretions, it's because you don't care enough. If you
Mic drop. Keep going.
if you and now we're not saying this to be haughty or proud.
Right.
It just needs to be said.
Yeah.
And it just does. You need to be called out.
Right.
And if I mean, there's more thoughts, but I'm taking up a lot of. I'll let you share some thoughts. But another thing too is, yes, I hear that folks that they would need their diet because of their health, and they need meat and these things, and a lot of people who I wouldn't say a lot. There's people that I've met that have said, I I can only eat animal parts because that's the only way. If not, I would have died. And so I need to eat animal parts and animal secretions. Um, so they're on their journey, I would say, but um they'll have to figure out how to get around if you can. I don't, I'm just maybe it's a moral, you're dealing with moral karma. And so
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. I don't know if that is actually really this true spiritual case of your being on this planet. Then I don't know what to say to you, and how you'll have to deal with that karma. Um, but again, with the moral impact of it, um, yeah, they don't want to be murdered, and it does take hard work. Like we talked about in our last interview, it's hard work for me. It's hard work
Mm. Yeah.
to to not eat uh murdered animals, and to find places that serve good, healthy food, or then buying groceries that are all plants. And it's hard work. It can be done, but it does take hard work. And even if you don't have a lot of money, government fiat, there's ways to there. You have to be creative, and you have to figure it out. And if you have some small plot of land, you can grow your food. I know it's not a lot, but at least you're starting. All food grows freely from the ground. We don't need money for food. We can literally grow it freely.
Sure.
Earth provides that. So
Mm.
there'll
Yeah.
never be any food shortages ever.
Right.
I mean,
That's
and
a
even
psyop.
yeah, it's a psyop. And even if the land's barren, well, then you have to understand how that land got barren, right?
Right.
And there's ways in which that I heard stories of using orgone. We talked about Oregon and Oregonite, and there's different sort of stories on that, how they've made deserts into green, and understanding how the system works. Now, I'm not saying that happens all the time, but I'm saying there's stuff out there that one can understand that's hidden on how to make things grow. Now, personally, I've never done any of that. So I'm just saying I choose to live in a city that has those things. And I have other ways of sort of thinking about if I would need to move into that. And that's something I'm learning. So I do have a bit of a privilege here, but because of my actions and trying to be here and live here, right? So, but anyways, all that to say, those are some of my thoughts. Yeah. So what do you think, Jerry?
Yeah. So much of what you said, I was just like agreeing. Also, I kind of feel like once going back to what you said about people saying, oh, well, I need to eat meat for my nutrition and stuff, like, I was identified as anemic at one point. I developed bruises all over my body because I just wasn't
Mm.
getting enough iron.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
because I was like vegetarian for like most of my life. And I realized looking back, like, I don't think I was necessarily supplementing correctly, A, and B, um, it's it's not the end of the world to have some mineral deficiencies, as long as you can have a clear conscience. Like, I don't know. I feel like spiritually, dude, I don't know about you, but I've gained like just tremendous spiritual abilities. I have crazy fucking dreams. I see visions and shit. Um, sober. once I made that step, once I started not committing wrong in my life, I feel like through veganism, through right living, yeah, just stuff started happening for me. I don't know if that's the case for you at all, or
Yeah, those are good thoughts. It definitely, how I would see it, it definitely opens up. It definitely opened up my heart more, my care more,
yeah,
because that's what happens. That's how it works. If you take the action, the courage to take the action, the bravery, the sacrifice, if you take the right do it. We're talking about doing the right thing. I mean, there's many actions you can take that are fine. So we're just talking about doing the right thing here.
yeah,
And if you do take that space, what I've had in my heart, it opens up more. You can
yeah,
feel more. Your care about all suffering increases,
yeah.
which which is great, but also it's more of a burden. And maybe that's maybe an unconscious thing that I think that's a big piece why folks maybe don't want to take in the philosophy of not harming animals, because
Right.
if one does take it in, it's such a heavy weight once you realize uh, all that's done on this planet over and over, like I was explaining in part 3, all
Yeah,
the animal sacrifice that happens,
yeah,
moment by moment on this planet all over. And I mean, that is just almost unbearable. If you really true know that that's wrong and you understand that it is real suffering, it it's it it's almost unbearable and very depressing. Um, so maybe that's another reason why folks don't want to take it on, because their heart's not strong enough. They don't want to do that. And then another piece, like we talked about, which is huge. And then another piece, what we talked about, is the social impact of it. What family might think, what friends might think when you go out, when you travel, all these things that
yeah.
you have to face socially, which is
Right.
another thing. But again, it's using that's wisdom. You've learned, you've taken the time to learn, you've taken the time to do the proper trivium method of the grammar stage of taking all the information in, then using the logic stage to I'm going to go back real quick to say that again. The grammar stage of taking all the information that you can in on a topic,
Right.
hence veganism, taking it all in and study it and know it. And then in the logic stage, you process it. And then in the rhetoric, is you speaking it, you're doing the wisdom. You are speaking, you are doing the wisdom of it. So doing the wisdom of veganism, going back, opens your heart. It was my experience for you, Jerry. More dreams, more vividness, more connected to the
Yeah,
ethereal world.
totally.
And then using plant-based medicines even further connects you into the ethereal world.
Yeah.
Um, and because we're spiritual beings, we have this skin that we're in now, and we're here. Yes, that's just the density of this plane, but there's in Hermetic philosophy and occult philosophy, not cult, but occult philosophy. Um, some folks talk about there's 6 other planes on top of the physical. The physical is just the last one, but then there's 6 other ones that all work in unison. And so the last 3 planes are spiritual nature planes. The abstract thinking, the concrete spiritual, and then basically the foundation coming from the all, the foundational monad plane coming from the all. So these 3 planes are our spiritual nature. So I guess what I'm saying is we're spiritual beings, and the practice doing wisdom is a spiritual practice that connects you in with love.
Yes, totally, dude.
So yeah.
Yeah. Um, in hearing what you said, I also feel like this is not really spoken about much in the trivium process, but like in my own journey, specifically with veganism, just checking in during the logic stage, checking in with your heart and just being like, it feels really shitty to watch an animal suffer and be slaughtered. Like fundamentally, that just sucks.
Yeah.
And you can just feel it. You just fucking feel it. It's not necessarily this understanding. I mean, that's important. But yeah, just like checking in with your heart also in that logic process.
Yeah, 100%. And that reminds me too, I think probably most people would agree with me, that when we're little, to watch that happen, we instantly turn away. We don't
Yeah.
want to understand it. I think if when we were little, if you showed us how that animal was murdered and processed and put in the plate, we would be totally traumatized. And I think that's a natural state in us, in
Right.
our innocent, our true care is there when we're little. And
Yeah.
then through society and parental influence, caregiver influence, it gets rotten. And then it ends up just being lesser than when we came into this planet.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, we're trying to change that.
Correct.
So I wanted to segue. So in our pre-conversation, you have your own private OS on your phone and your laptop. You have mastered the art of keeping your shit private. And so how did you go about that process as a self-admitted Luddite / newbie to technology?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's so. I mean, I'll probably talk more about this and other times too, but I
Yeah.
guess if I mean to summarize my work as an activist,
Mm.
I'm sort of involved in three areas that I feel called to. One is the clinical psychology, the practice that I have helping children and families, and then
Yeah.
moving into that space, and realizing, the foundation of everything is don't harm anyone, and
Yeah.
that is what it is. And so that actually brings true health. True psychological health is understanding not to harm. That's the foundation. Then you can move from there and explore your inner thought life, your inner emotional life, and move from there. But that has to be the foundation. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is my activist website, freeasabove.xyz, and that's where I release the video. So that's
I'll be
one
sure to
thing.
link it.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, and so then I go into more deep, like esoteric stuff, objective morality, and where I think natural law can be connected and integrated into certain topics, and to help inspire and move people forward. Just how other people that have taught natural law uh, uh, and shared and helped me learn, and then reading the books of the people even before my time, right?
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. And then the third thing, um, so yeah, I have a sort of a computer mind, and I like computers. I'm kind of a geek that way at times. And so I worked, when I was in my doctoral program, I worked at IT at the university. And so for 4
Okay.
years I did that, and I worked and helped. I was at the front desk, the help desk. So when people come in with their laptops or whatever, I would try to troubleshoot and with a team, and we would try to figure things out. There was much more brilliant people there than me, but at least I got to work with computers and figure all that stuff out. So I was kind of liked. I thought they were just fascinating and fun.
You do not have an IT personality. You're very like warm. Every interaction I've ever had with someone in IT has been like very curt and cold. And I'm just like, okay,
Yeah.
I guess you don't want to be warm with me. So that's really funny. I
Yeah.
didn't know that about your background. That's funny. Go on.
Yeah, so I don't know. I like puzzles, and I like mechanical stuff, and so
Cool.
and it's just cool that computers can do these cool things, and so I was like, oh, that's cool. And
Mm.
so anyways, so But then as sort of my awakening after the COVIDs and the pandemic, my further sort of acute pop, then I was like, well, I'm using a lot of this big tech stuff and a lot of these big tech companies. It's all just data mining.
Right.
It's taking everything that you do online is monitored and data mined in these
Yes.
big warehouses full of little computers. So it's just a computer. Well, they're big. They're like a really thin, long computer. It's like a server. And then it just stores stuff on the hard drive. And when you sign up for services, you're agreeing to the contract of this
Yeah.
company. And every company, an LLC, an S corp is registered with the government. So it's a wing of the government. It's just once removed. So it's just
shit.
so that's all it is. So it's just the government. Just you don't know it is, but it is.
Right.
And but there's laws to prevent this, and a private company can't get involved with government stuff. Diarrhea coming out of your mouth. Moron.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if a judge rules it, it'll happen. They'll pull any data they want from you. And then the back doors that are in it. I mean, I don't know about Edward Snowden, about that dude, but I mean, at least he did. I think he exposed a lot what was going on. So that was good, but I don't know why that was or who's behind him or whatever. But yes, so your information is taken just like on here. It's stored on StreamYard. It's stored on their servers, and then they're a company. So if the government says, "Yep, we need that record," they'll have to give it up, because every time you read their privacy and terms and conditions, we follow the law, and if anything, there's criminal. They just nonsense. They're just saying they're in that. Now I understand this ostensibly that we don't want to have anybody being harmed, like threats of violence and child pornography and all this stuff. Okay, I get that. But there are better ways in which to handle that than having a government get involved in everything. There are way better. That's not the only option. There's many options to a problem. But the state gets along, and we've been so ingrained and mind controlled that we think the state is the big person to come along and make all the wrongs right. This is our mind control.
Yeah.
And so we think that is the only option. So ostensibly these companies, which are government arms, government tentacles, I forgot what to say. But anyways, these government, they're connected to the governments, and so they ostensibly want to say that we're trying to do these good things. But in reality, just like the Patriot Act, in reality, it's just a spy program that will keep things going. Next point. Moving forward in the future, when you use internet protocols, you're going to have to KYC. No, it's called Know Your Customer. Know Your Customer. And that's where you have to give up IDs. You have to probably give bank statements. It'll get nastier and nastier in the future. But as you use all the big techs like Facebook and all the, I want to cuss, but all those garbage.
You're free to on my platform. I do it routinely. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah. All those platforms will move into that state because the government's turning the wrench. And so since they are in compliance because they signed a contract with the government, corporation, S corp, LLC, since they signed the contract, they are liable to follow what the government dictates.
Dude.
So therefore, they will also have to KYC. I mean, then put this stuff. Reddit's already doing it. Twitter's already doing it. LinkedIn, verify, please verify, so you get the blue check. You get that little check by your name. And then you got to give over your ID. And so now, and then on top of that, all of our social security numbers were all just leaked on a huge database. The entire American, all social securities were leaked. So all the databases so you see the problem. Not only is your privacy going to get violated, And then two, the government's then those platforms are going to track everything you're doing and saying. So now they know your whereabouts. Obviously, they've already known this because of iPhones over the last 20 years, and they track you, and it's all. So
Yeah.
I mean, a perfected slave thinks they're free,
Ah, fuck.
and so
I'm gonna write that shit down.
we
Perfected. Keep going. That's amazing.
we have been taught that we are free. In America, the last thing that is holding our ground is not the Second Amendment. I don't want to say that. The last thing that's holding our ground is there's not extreme overt violence done to us if we have firearms. That's the last thing that's holding the states. For the creator of the universe, we fought so hard. So we have so many firearms for every man, woman, and child in this land's mass known as the United States. So that means we're not fully a slave yet. But if we as a society give that up, perfected slave. So, so my passion and activism is to help people understand how to get themselves out of the digital occultocracy, as Passio says. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's how they want to move us into the space, and that's what they'll continue to do. They try to do it with the COVIDs and like the digital quaxine cards and stuff like that. That was just a pre thing just to get people ready for it, to sort of put it in their conscious, so they might hit us again with something else, and then eventually it's just going to be like you have to use a digital thing to go anywhere. Where did this happen again? Let me think. Oh, yeah, when the Nazis had to show your papers. Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, that right. Oh, history. Oh, yeah, let's think about history one more time. Let's put that in our mind. Yee! So, anyways, there is good software out there. Now, I've tried in my mission to make it the most easiest and usable, but there's good software that pulls you out of the big tech environments. And it's one thing to be public and have this because I'm choosing to be public about this. So that's my public life. But my private life, that stays private. And so I've tried to build systems that help people, if they want to stay private in their private life, they have that option. We have to have more options. So that is my thought on it. And so I've learned a few things on how to like navigate and stuff to use and things like that. And so regarding my phone, the best thing right now to have the most private phone is, if you want to get sort of geeky and talk about this stuff just for a little bit.
Yeah. No, I love it.
So Google, the most, they're a big tech nightmare. They make a phone called a Google Pixel, and they was trying to compete with iPhone and things like that. And whatever, they still make them. Okay, cool. But the hardware that Google puts into their phone is really, really secure. The hardware, the software is not. So it ships with their version of Android. So Android is the base foundation of phones that are not Apple. And Android is based on Linux. And Google created Android, but it's open source. So anyone can make their own copy of it. And it's no longer controlled by Google, and it's controlled by the people. So the nice thing about Google is they made it open source, so anybody can take a copy and then make it how they want it.
Wow.
So there is an operating system for the phone called Graphene OS.
How do you spell that?
I'm a horrible speller. Graphene OS. Oh my gosh.
Graphene, like an N or an M?
N.
N.
Graphene. OS, graphene
Got you.
OS. Yes. Like graphene oxide, or what's in, what they talk about, it's in the quaxines, but it's graphene OS. Okay. So, it's Android, and a group of developers and hackers took Android, made their own copy, and then they've hardened it. Hardened means secure. They securitized it from
Cool.
the core all the way to the front end, the little icons you touch.
Sweet.
And so it only downloads on Google Pixel phones.
Okay.
So you have to get a Google Pixel phone, and then you install Graphene OS. It wipes out the Google operating system, cleans it, so it's
Nice.
blank. So it's just the
Wow.
hardware. And then it
Yeah.
takes the new software and dumps it in, and then it operates off that new operating system, OS operating system. It operates off of that then. And
I
it's
see.
completely private. So a few things to understand what I mean by private is it doesn't ask for your name or your address or anything like that when you sign up with it. You can shut off the GPS. When you click it, it shuts that off completely.
Wow.
You can shut off the radios, like the Bluetooth is called a Bluetooth radio, a Wi-Fi radio, the cell signal radio, that the little radio that's on the board of the Pixel phone. The software, you can click it and it shuts those radios off.
Wow.
So the phone can go completely dark. Other
Nice.
phones, when you shut off the radio, you don't know if it's actually shutting it off or not.
I've experienced that.
Yes, and the
I'll get phone calls and I'm like, this, I
Yeah.
thought I turned this off. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and the microphone and stuff like that. So, and it's open source. You can look at the code, and those developers, it's free. The operating system's free. You just have to pay for the phone, and then you go download it.
Nice.
It is sort of they have instructions online on how to download it, but you have to take your time. You got to go really slow and read it. And if you don't know what they're talking about, you have to go look it up online and what the words they're saying. You just have to take your time. I've done it for people. I've set up phones. So you can look into that process. But that is, so a note. If you want to do things in the private, yes, it does take work. That's the problem. It's not convenient. Ugh. But just like
Yeah.
anything, like I said, I live in a city. And so me growing my own food, that would not be convenient for me. And so that's why I rely on someone else to the farm and then to bring it. So if you want to go sovereign in your life, yes, it does. No one else is really going to do it for you. You have to learn it yourself. But if you do care about your privacy in your private life, then that is the route, as far as I'm known and studied, that is the route to take for your phone. Is you get a Pixel phone, you get them on Amazon for like $350, and then download Graphene.
Cool.
Learn how to do it, and then learn how to set it up. And I guess if you need help, you can reach out to me. I can help you out, but that's how you do it.
Do you need to learn Linux? Because I heard
No.
that's like really hard to. Okay.
If you have a Windows computer, the installer or you take the new phone and you plug it into your computer, and then you go to Graphene OS's website, and then it says download or install. You click it, and then it has instructions on how to walk you through it.
Oh, cool. So do you have your own private OS on your laptop as well?
Yes,
Or
yes,
computer?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Is that
so that's a little different. Once I realized that the big techs, Apple and Windows, are just horrible, then I was like, yeah, I gotta bounce out of everything. I gotta bounce out. I want my privacy back. So,
yeah, dude.
So then I had to really take my time and learn Linux and take my time with that. Because that's really the only way to go. There's no really else. There's no way to go. So fortunately, though, there are some pretty easy ways in which to download the operating system on a Linux operating system onto your computer.
Okay.
On typical, they don't work on a Mac hardware, but there is a Linux operating system that does. That's out. I haven't tried it yet, but that is, and if you need help, you can reach out to me. But any Windows computer, rule of thumb, will run Linux just fine.
Cool.
So if you have a Windows laptop or a Windows desktop, you can install Linux on it. And the wonderful thing about Linux is that there's many tutorials online. I mean, just go to any search engine and you can find videos after videos of people really trying to help people navigate the space. So probably the two easiest, what I would probably recommend if one was to do it. So for two things. One is you already have the laptop and you're going to install, one is Linux Mint, is what most people go to as the easiest, or Ubuntu.
Oh, I've heard of that one. Yeah.
Those are two. Those are fairly easy to do. Ubuntu is a little, they're kind of, they got in bed a little bit with Microsoft a bit, but it's still open source and everything, but it's a bit more polished.
Okay.
The one I use on my computer is an operating system that I created out of Linux. So it's my own operating system.
Dude, amazing.
And I love it. It works so good. And I call it Sovereign Systems OS Lite. So I like that one. I can, if you're interested, I can help you figure out how to do it. But I've installed it on some friends' laptops and they like it. And it's easy. You just click a button and it does all the updates.
Cool.
And I try to keep it as easy as possible. That's the beauty about Linux. If you kind of understand and take your time with it, I mean, if you ever want to do that, but if you ever do and you like that kind of stuff, Linux can do whatever you'd like it to do. You just tell it, how you can tell it what to do and it just does it. So that's great. But yes, so what I would recommend, and then the last thing to make it really easy, there's a company called System 76. And they make laptops, all Linux laptops. So you can just order a laptop and it's already got it installed and you're good.
Wow, cool.
And they use their operating system called Pop OS, P-O-P-O-S, Pop OS. And that's what comes pre-installed on their laptop. So there's no download, there's nothing you need to do. And they're trying to make it as easy as possible for people as well. And so, and then you got your freedom there too. So it's not using Windows or Mac. So just typical, like browsing the web, working on documents, using a web browser, all that stuff works just fine on Linux. It's perfect. Wow. If you want to do like content creation, like in the class that we're in, it can be done. All my work on my website is all free and open source software, all done on Linux. Wow. So I do it. And so it can be done. But on the day-to-day, the typical use of Linux, it's fine. And so, real quick, Linux is just basically, it's an open source system on how you put it on the hardware. And then it's like, okay, this is a way we do it. And it's just like Windows and Mac. It's just an open source software. Then what happens, that's the base. And then what happens, people come along and they say, well, I want my Linux to look like this, or I want my Linux to look like this. And so they're like, okay, so they code it, make it, and then it looks like they can make it look like Windows, or they can make it look like Mac. And then they package it together and say, okay, this is my operating system. And it's based on Linux, but it looks like Windows. So, because it's open source, so you can do whatever you want. Open source means that the programmer writes the code in, and then they post it to a website where you can see the lines of code.
GitHub or something.
Yeah, GitHub. Yeah. That's one of the main ones. And now most people maybe don't know how to read lines of code, and I don't know a lot. Yeah. But at least it can be audited by folks who do. It's out in the public. So that's the beauty of it. And a lot of the people do it for free. Some get paid by companies and they get paid to input it like Google did for Android, like I talked about. So some people get paid as they program, but that's all that means. And most software in Linux is free. Most of it's free. So it's very budget friendly as well.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, so if you get it from a company like System 76 that puts it on the computer right away, then you don't have to worry about it. You just got to learn how to use Pop OS, their operating system. And it's like a blend between Windows and Mac. It's like a blend between those two.
Wow, cool.
Yeah. So those are some thoughts on that. But again, if you want to go down the road of privacy, that is the best way I found. And now that's all I use now. So I really kind of try to keep my private life private and then my public life public so I can make that distinction. I don't want to be spied on or trespassed.
Yeah.
So I also help people in that realm. If they're really serious and they want to reach out to me, I can help them navigate through that space and give them my thoughts on that. But those are, yeah. So it needs to be easier as we move forward is what I'm saying, because the way big tech's going now, in my estimation, is not going to be good. It's just more of that
Yeah.
layer of just, um, uh, dis- dystopia. It's just awful.
Yeah.
So it's a 1984 sort of energy headed
Totally.
down the path.
Yeah, I love the way you really laid out why opting into those sort of mainstream systems is participating with government, actually.
Yeah.
Makes total sense. And it makes total sense why one would want to, yeah, just remove themselves from that system. And it's, yeah, totally a form of activism that, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, thanks. Mhm.
And you have your own server as well, right? Or
Yeah, so,
dude, I'm like, how do I set this all up for myself? I'm just kind of like overwhelming, like the classes,
it
but I feel like
it
I gotta
is,
learn
and
it.
that's what Jared and I talked about. We were having a conversation
Yeah,
before. Yeah. If you're just learning computers, this is way, way advanced stuff.
yeah,
So one, okay, if you want to produce content, if you're inspired by us and want to teach natural law, well, and you don't know computers, you got to learn the basics first. And then
sure,
you have to learn how to then use the software tools in which to publish. And that's all
right.
you really need to know.
Okay,
Then that's the chunk. Now, if you want to move into more privacy, then it does get a bit more complicated, but there are groups and people like myself that are trying to make it easier for people. So
mm,
it can be an easier transition.
mm,
So yeah, try not to get too overwhelmed by this, but just chunk it in your mind so you know the stages. Um,
right.
so I created a computer movement called Sovereign Systems. Sovereign is the ancient word for sovereign. And
Mm,
so it's a way to be digitally sovereign. So all my communication works off of it's a little computer that I install my operating system on it. And then if people want to partake in it, they gift Bitcoin, and then I will send them a Sovereign Pro is what I call it.
wow.
I'll send them that as a appreciation for the gift. And then that allows them to run their own website. It allows them to have their own private chat, their private video calls. It's their own Bitcoin
Dude,
node, their own Bitcoin
sweet.
point of sale, and their own Bitcoin storage. And it's got all that stuff packaged in it, where the individual does not have to install anything. They just turn it on and it's ready to go.
Sweet.
You do have to learn like how to use the chat service, like StreamYard. You're learning how to use StreamYard and click the buttons. So all
Yeah,
the features that the Sovereign Pro has, you have to learn how to use them, but you don't have to install any like Linux stuff or anything like that. I
right.
tried to make it as easy as possible. So that's what I've been doing too, out of
Fun.
my three arms of my activism about natural
Great.
law. So I've kind of spread in those. But yeah, thanks for asking. That's what I do as well.
Of course. I wanted to, I know we're gonna wrap up soon, but
Yep.
could you, since you just mentioned Bitcoin, talk about the difference between Bitcoin and cryptocurrency? I know you have like a few more minutes, but it's a big topic.
Uh, Eesh.
Why
Okay.
why should we be paying attention to Bitcoin and not just cryptocurrency?
All right. So I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. I like saying, I mean, it's a narrative, but I mean, I am that I am. But in my research, Bitcoin is the only way that is the only bridge that's going to get us to a resource-based economy of what's out there now. Now there's something else, but of what's currently out there now, Bitcoin is the only thing that's going to get us out of the Monai mind control. And because Bitcoin has the unique properties that no other shitcoin has. All other things just run away from them. Run away. Bitcoin is not crypto. Bitcoin is its own. It was discovered, not invented. It is probably one of the most greatest discoveries for monetary systems that's ever been out there.
Wow.
It has unique properties. It's a limited supply. There's only 21 that can ever be made. There was no pre-mining. It didn't. People got together and just started pre-mining a whole bunch of coins and then sold them. It didn't happen that way. It wasn't pre-mined. It's completely decentralized. It's proof of work. Most other shit coins are proof of stake, where the more you hold, the more you get to vote. That's government. That's centralization.
Dude, makes sense.
Proof of work makes the digital asset thermodynamically secured. You have to use the Earth's energy. You have to expend the Earth's energy to actually produce the coin. It cannot be done any other way. So that's why they call it mining. So it's proof of work, not proof of stake. It's decentralized. It is no pre-mining, and there's a limited supply. When you have an unlimited economy, goods and services, assets are finite, but the economy of goods and services can be unlimited. This is Austrian economics 101. When you move into a state of understanding how economies work, it can be limited. When you have an unlimited economy with a limited supply, if you hold Bitcoin, your purchasing power over time will always increase. You'll keep being able to buy more and more and more of goods and services with just the small amount that you hold, because it'll keep going up in value, in purchasing power, not value, purchasing power. Whereas the fiat currency, it is government controlled, and you can just print as much as they want, which it loses its purchasing power. So you need more and more to get goods and services. Whereas this discovery allows you to have it where you need if you hold it, it just it has higher purchasing power. So now, I'm not saying this is freedom. I'm just saying this is a huge tool to help us understand at least the deception of the monetary system, and a solution in which we can hold on to currently to help us free ourselves from that wing of the dark occult. But morality is the end. If we're not moral, it's all going to fall apart. But at least in the meantime, you can learn Bitcoin, learn how it works, and begin to learn how to get it without any ID, and learn how to store it. Because if you have it, it can never be taxed. No one can take it away from you. You can travel anywhere in the world with it, and you can hold $5 of it or $100 billion worth of it, and no one knows. You can have unlimited wealth that you don't have to maintain. So it's one way in which to protect yourself. And so that's why in my little server that I have, it allows you to be the whole sovereign loop. so you don't have to trust anyone.
Wow, dude.
And the whole Bitcoin, it's on. I did a presentation on my Free as Above website if you want to learn more.
I watched it, but I had trouble understanding some of it, so I should rewatch it now. So
okay, well, if you have any questions, I'll reach out. But that is my strong opinion based on my research. You got to do your own research, but I'm pretty sure you're going to come to my conclusion if you think about it and you take the time. And another place to start is the Bitcoin Wiki. I forgot that it's on my my doctor website because I talked about because I accept gifting of Bitcoin for my therapy services. So
nice, cool. All right, we are at time. Is there any parting thoughts, words you'd like to share before we wrap up?
No, I think that So thanks again, Gary, for having me. Appreciate it. That was fun to talk about. And my website is freeasabove.xyz. If you want therapeutic help and are struggling too with parenting or children, your own children or something like that, or whatever may be following you at the moment, drdustinplattner.com is my professional website. And then sovereignsystems.com is the server website that I do. And but thanks again for letting me talk and having your energy and being there. So I appreciate it.
Woohoo. Yeah. So I'll make sure to link those three in the description. Great. Thank you.
Yay. Bye, Jerry.
Bye-bye.
I'll see you there. Okay. Bye-bye.